I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about 5 big triggers for the avoidant attachment style. There are many people in this world that tend to be more avoidant in their romantic relationships. The reason that they got there is how things happened in their childhood. Now, we've been talking about this for years and trying to educate people for years, because when you understand your partner, particularly if they're avoidant, you can navigate a situation and understand it much better. Now, whether or not you decide to date somebody avoidant, that's a different story, because you may decide that you're not getting your needs met, or that not enough of your needs are met to stay. And that's something for you to also consider. But if you do want to date somebody who is more avoidant, then you have to learn how they operate, because the better you can understand them, the healthier the relationship will be.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of what we'll be talking about today is based off of a Psychology Today article by Dr. Joni Swebb. The article is called 5 Triggers for Adults with Childhood Emotional Neglect. The reason why we are catering this more from the lens of an avoidant attachment style is because a lot of times those with avoidant attachment styles had emotionally neglectful parents. You know, they came from that history of emotional neglect. So you will see a lot of these same triggers associated with that attachment style. Of course, they can also be present with more of the anxious style too, but we'll get into that as we talk about these different triggers. The very first one is being around parents. And I can see you already smiling because we do see this one often.
You know what Margaret's least favorite day of the year was?
Which day?
Mother's Day.
Mm. And how come?
Because it set everybody off.
Mm-hmm. It can be so triggering to be around the source of a lot of your trauma, and around parents who might even to this day still not know how to be present with your emotions. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes parents do mellow out throughout the years, or they learn new things in adulthood or later on in life that they didn't when they were young parents, let's say. So things can change, but for some people, being around their parents, around their same tone of voice, you know, it can trigger a lot of those memories and feelings that they had from when they were younger.
Yep.
And it can be talking with parents, even on the phone. It can be being around them.
Going to visit.
Yes. Yeah.
Vacations. Oh, I gotta go see my parents.
Right. And I actually see quite a few breakups that happen right after like a family reunion or things like that, or surrounding a family reunion.
Anything like that, it can cause a breakup. Yeah.
Right. And so it can be triggering for somebody with a more avoidant attachment style. It might give them back all those feelings of being trapped as they felt when they were a kid, and it might scream even louder into their relationships when they're coming back, you know, into the real world trying to relate with you again because of seeing them. Mm-hmm. So keep that in mind. The feelings that can resurface are the ones such as hurt, anger at their parents. You might find your partner being a little bit more irritable if they're around their parents. And sometimes they get a sense that something is missing when around their parents. Certain parents have very high expectations of their children, even if they're emotionally neglectful. This can be kind of a confusing concept. But they might have a very rigid idea of what they want their child's future to look like, or who they want their child to marry. And so if they are in contact with their parents again and they know, well, my parent doesn't like me dating somebody of this culture, or they always wanted me to date a doctor or a lawyer.
Yep.
It's going to cause them to rethink their relationships sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So consider that as well.
Yeah, all those things go on in their unconscious, whether they tell you or not. Mm-hmm. Another big one, being ignored. You know, if you think about it, what do you think was going on in their childhood? They weren't getting a lot of love and attention, despite them telling you, my childhood was fine. No, it wasn't. You don't wind up avoidant when life was good. You just don't. It's not the way it works. So they were likely ignored. They were likely dismissed. Their needs were likely dismissed over and over again, starting when they were probably even infants. It can be hard to believe, but a lot of parents have this mindset of let them cry it out. Just let them cry it out. Well, you've got a baby being traumatized every day of its life when it's being neglected, maybe in pain from gas, maybe wants to get changed, maybe just is feeling scared or alone, consistently being ignored. And what do you think is going to happen if you, as the romantic partner, ignore them? It's going to bring up all of the trauma, whether they're able to articulate it and tell you that or not. But it's basically now the patterns from their childhood, which were horrible or painful, are now coming up in their romantic relationships. And so they don't know what to do. They shut down. It brings up these old wounds. They maybe try and suppress it or ignore it because their parents told them to suppress it or ignore it. So a lot of times avoidants will not communicate well. They may say something, they may tell you, but they may not say, hey, this is important. Like, they may say, I really wish you'd do this. And particularly if you're anxious and you're having a hard time hearing their needs because you're focused on your own needs, you're not really hearing them. And they'll be like, but I told you that. And you're thinking, yeah, but you only said it that one time and I just kind of didn't think about it was important. But for them, that was like, yeah, but I said it. So if I said it, you should hear it. You should know it.
And they probably worked so hard just to muster the courage to tell you that one thing.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, is that avoidance can be so subtle in the way that they are vulnerable, in the way that they ask for their needs. It's almost like, I don't know if you've ever been at a friend's house and it's like the first time you're there and you're eating dinner together and you really want the salt that's like across the table. You don't want to be like, hey, Johnny, Uncle Johnny, pass the salt. You want to be a little bit subtle. You're like, oh, my food it's a little bit bland. So you're using subtle little ways to communicate with somebody because you learned that you can't be comfortable enough to just say what you need and have those needs be met. And so it does take a higher level of awareness and attunement to be with somebody who is more avoidant. And it is partially their responsibility to work through those issues to be able to assert some of their needs. Yeah,
they may hint. They may just do little hints.
Yeah. So being ignored can be one of those big triggers. Another one is experiencing conflict. So this is actually a pretty common trigger for both anxious and avoidant attachment style. The anxious person is afraid that the conflict is going to cause the other partner to abandon them, and the avoidant person is afraid that the conflict is going to mean more responsibilities or obligations being put on them.
That is true.
So it can kind of go both ways. But part of conflict is being able to accept that you are angry or you are upset or something is not working for you, and it kind of requires you to assert that. And so the reason why it's so difficult for avoidants to face conflict at times is because it requires them to be in touch with that emotion. Sometimes they are not. They would rather say, no, me needs? No. Me angry? Oh, no.
They sweep it under the rug.
Right.
Because that's what they always had to do.
And so those who have experienced neglect, avoidant attachment style, they haven't learned how to communicate their needs properly, making conflict very challenging, and they just don't have those skills.
Yep, it's a real struggle for them. Now, here's another big one for avoidance. Needing help from someone else. They do not like it, and you want to know why? Because they've been neglected. And they've asked for help many times over the years, and they were told no, or it wasn't important, or whatever it may be, but they become self-reliant, and they get this attitude of, I'll do it myself. I can't count on anybody else. I can't count on anybody else. I don't know why I bother to ask. And if you really get to that point where they're really dismissive, they were really neglected.
Oh, yeah.
But, when people constantly let you down again and again and again, you want to give up on asking. You want to give up on relying on somebody, because even if they make an effort, if it's not the way the avoidant wants it, they can get angry. Like, oh, you did it, yeah, but you didn't do the way that I needed it, so it was pointless anyway. Right? Sometimes they say things like that. Well, you did it, but you didn't do it the way I said. So why did you do it? Because you just made more work for me.
Yeah, it's hard for them even to receive that help, is I think what you're saying. You know, even if they ask for it, even if you're able to meet those needs, them being able to have a warm enough heart to say, oh, wow, thank you. You know, this does fulfill a need. It's so foreign to them.
Well, it's tough, too, because even when you make an effort that you think they'll appreciate, if it's not done exactly the way they were thinking it should be done, then they get irritated and agitated, and you're like, well, what's the point of you helping? It's not really helping because you didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it.
And really, that's stemming from a place of hurt.
Yeah.
Of my needs were never met, so I'm already expecting that of another partner. I'm already expecting you to not be able to fulfill it in the way that I asked.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like, well, I knew I couldn't count on you, so I don't know why I bothered.
Right. And experiences that people have in early childhood from being rejected can really stick with them all throughout life. You know, when I was a kid, I remember that my mom's church had some type of a function. It was like a fall festival or something like that. And there was a little game that they had set up for the kids. It was like bobbing for apples or something like that. So I remember I loved that game. I thought it was very fun because my mom would never let me make that type of a mess at home. And so I was like, you know, getting all in there. Water was splashing everywhere. I was able to get a couple apples.
It's good that you had a bath, though.
First time in weeks. No, I'm kidding. I was a very clean child, okay? So anyways, I was able to, you know, get a certain amount of apples, and that meant that you got a certain amount of prizes or whatever. So towards the end of the festival, I remember that I had gone back because, you know, as kids, you can go back to these same little booths, and if they had more prizes or whatever, they would just give out more. So the guy at the booth was running out of prizes to give. And I remember I just went for the game, and I was bobbing for apples so hard, and I like caught the most amount of apples, and I was so excited to show him to get more of the prizes. And I remember him saying, oh, I'm sorry, we don't have any more prizes left. And I was crushed, and I still remember it. And I remember that feeling of him saying, you know, basically leave some for the other kids. Of we barely have any prizes left. And so, you know, I'm thinking if I can remember this story that, you know, is pretty mild based off of some of the things that we've heard, you can just imagine the impact of these small experiences on people's way of relating and asking for needs to be met. You know, so just something to consider. Small experiences when you're young can make such a profound and lasting impact.
It really does, and you don't realize it. But people get sensitive about things and triggered by things, and you may not understand why they're acting that way, but it's probably because they were hurt in some way.
Right. The last big trigger that we want all of you to be aware of is being around an expression of strong emotions. So this is another one that we see often, especially towards the end of a relationship and during a breakup, is that you will be heartbroken, and it is natural and normal for you to have a strong expression of emotion when somebody is saying, I don't want to be with you anymore. And you might see your partner be utterly unreceptive to it, but so much more when they are avoidant at times. And so this can be a trigger for them, because they have not been able to manage, see, acknowledge their own emotions. It can be very uncomfortable to be able to sit with the emotions of somebody else. And as human beings, we naturally mirror each other. And so when we see somebody who has a strong emotional reaction, our bodies sometimes will react before our minds. You know, and having that body feel for them can bring up so much discomfort because they don't know what to make of that intensity of a feeling.
Yeah. And I think what goes along with that is chances are that person wasn't comforted, so they don't know how to be comforting if somebody's expressing strong feelings because they weren't comforted. Right? So how do they know how to do it for somebody else? They don't.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And you might also see an incongruence here with how they express their emotion versus what they're talking about, the content, or they might have the complete opposite reaction than you would expect when you're showing them emotion. So I'll give you a couple examples. The first one is you might find somebody who's a little bit more avoidant talking about a really sad story, but they're smiling while they're telling you this. You know, or they might even be laughing, you know, like a nervous laughter. Or maybe it is even a traumatic story and they're smiling and you're just sitting there a little bit confused with how to react because it's what they're saying is not matching their expression.
Yeah.
Or the opposite can happen where you're telling them something that's really sad, or maybe you're crying and you're noticing that they're having almost the tendency to laugh or
smiling.
Right. And so this is something that, you know, some people with emotional neglect in their history might experience. Yeah.
But if somebody does it, it's going to be uncomfortable and you're going to be like, what, you don't care? Like, I don't understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
Learning about attachment styles and navigating them for whoever you're dating is going to help you have stronger connections. And whether or not you decide to date somebody that's avoidant, that's a completely different story. But if you are, it's good to understand them so your situation is stronger. Like, what's the point of being with somebody who's avoidant if you really don't want to make an effort to make the situation as good as it can, to bring out the best in the relationship or in them, you know? So, something to consider.
Right. And hopefully this video can just give you some insight on some of those triggers. It might give you some explanation if you're noticing your partner or even an ex reflecting back on that relationship was acting strange. Now, at least it gives you some type of theory, some type of understanding of what might have been going on behind the scenes that we often don't know about. An avoidant won't be able to sit there and tell you, oh yes, I was triggered by this event and it brought back, you know, this exact feeling that I had in childhood. They're not going to be able to verbalize that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. You can learn a lot about attachment theory in the creative healing course in particular, and in the workbooks. They will teach you a lot and give you a lot of good skills to help you navigate all your romantic relationships. And of course, if you want to get our help personally, you can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. And Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.